All right, so we talked a little bit about this once in a previous lesson where you could play the sevenths all on your guitar or all on piano or whatever, or you can have it be kind of implied. Like, let's say vocals go like this, like the vocals go. Maybe that might be like. And then you've really changed it, right? Basically, just having the singer sing this note over the C chord, and that'd be your 4 chord. You know. But if they sing this, like. That's when you change the key to F. But you never had to do that. You could just be like, you know. You know, and they would do the cadence for you basically. That's them singing. You know. Let's try another test. Let's say you have a G chord that goes to B minor. What key are you in? Yeah, G major chord to B minor. It'd be like a 1 and a 3 chord, right? Yeah, I don't think there's any other possibility. Actually, no, there is a possibility. That could be the 4 chord and the 6 chord. I didn't think of that at first either, right? Think about it this way. Think of your C as a 4 chord and your E minor as a 6 chord. Well, they're both a major third away, or a third away. So G could be 1 chord, B minor could be 3 chord, or it could be 4 chord, 6 chord. Make sense? Okay, so if it's 4 chord, 6 chord, you'd be in the key of D that whole time. So like the 1 and the 3, the 1 chord and the 3 chord are a third interval away, right? The 1 and the 3, yeah. The same is true of the 4 and the 6. And the 4 is major and the 6 is minor, just like the 1 is major and the 3 is minor. So if you play a major chord and then a minor chord up a third, there's 2 keys that you could be in, right? Basically, be in the key of G or the key of D. And here's basically what you do to find out. All right. All right, cool. So let's say you got your G chord, and then you've got B minor. Now we could be in the key of G or the key of D, right? Let's play a D chord next. Right. Now that D would be the 1 chord, or if we were in the key of G, it could be the 5 chord. Right? So even the D itself, they share the same relationship, you know? That sounds like it's in the key of D. If I go D, right? It sounds like I'm doing 1 chord, 6 chord, 4 chord, 1 chord. If I do the opposite and I go G, B minor, D, it sounds like it's in the key of G. You got your 1 chord, your 3 chord, your 5 chord, and your 1 chord. I just did them in a different order, basically. Yeah. Ending on the 1 ending on the G or the D, because those are the keys. Those are the 2 keys we could be in here, right? We could be in the key of G major or D major, and so if I start and end on G, it's going to sound like I'm in the key of G, especially if I get to that G at the end by way of the D, because D is a fifth from G. So it's like a 5-1 cadence. It's really strong. Now, if I do it the other way, I start on the D and I end on the D, it's going to sound like I'm in the key of D, especially if I come from the G, because that's the 4 chord, and 4-1 is an okay cadence. It's not as strong as a 5-1, but it's still good. Like, that's kind of an amen thing. Yeah. And so, yeah, you could be in either of those keys. Now, you could switch between them, and people may not know what's going on. May be hard to analyze, not in a bad way. Like, it could be so subtle that you're doing something interesting, where you have maybe the verse in the key of G and the chorus in the key of D, and people may not notice. And if they don't notice, it might be good, because if they have to think about it, they might be uncomfortable, you know? Or you could do it the other way around. Now, let's say you want to kind of surprise someone who's listening, where they really do know it's in one key. Then what you need is an additional chord that doesn't fit within the context of the other key, right? So I'll give you an example. If you got your G, B minor, C, D, and then G. We're totally obviously in the key of G now, right? Because we were in the key of D, we wouldn't have a C major chord. There's no, yeah, that'd be like a, yeah. However, if we had a C sharp diminished or half diminished, let's do half diminished, then we'd be in the key of D. So it'd be like G, B minor, then our 7th chord, C sharp, half diminished, and then D. So I did a C sharp half diminished, like 4th fret, 5th fret, 4th fret, 5th fret, yeah. So you see how that's a chord, either a C or a C sharp half diminished, and that'll tell you which key you were in all this time. Because C would be a 4 chord. Well, we changed a note to move it around. We made it fully diminished instead of half diminished. Diatonically, it's half diminished, which means it's a diminished triad with a flat 7, as opposed to a fully diminished, which is a diminished triad with a double flat. Yeah, exactly, double flat 7. So basically what we got here is the C chord would be a 4 chord in the key of G, and the C sharp half diminished would be the 7 chord in the key of D. All right, so now what happened was we had a super vague progression, really, that could have been in the key of G or the key of D, and we could switch on really vague ground that way between like the verse and the chorus, let's say. This is kind of a creative idea. Or you could be more explicit in your switch by having your verse, let's say, in the key of G, where you go, you know, then here comes your chorus. Now we're in the key of D, right? That's so church sounding, but the point is, like, you don't have to do it like that. You could be like, just like we went like this. You could go, and it all changed in our mind. We just went to the key of D, you know? It's like, yeah, exactly, because they're only one chord difference. But the chord difference, that chord, whether it's a C or C sharp diminished, makes all the difference. Now, so what we did, right? We started with 2 chords. This is how we built this whole thing from the ground. We start with 2 chords and see what keys we could possibly be in. We determined there's only 2 keys that we could possibly be in. And then we saw, well, we could change between those keys just depending on the order of the chords, right? Like, we start and end on a chord, it'll give us a perception that we're in that key. And that if we changed it so where we went from the 3 chord to the 1 chord, it may not have as strong a cadence as if we went from the 5 chord to the 1 chord. Or if we go from the 6 chord to the 1 chord, it may not have as strong cadence as if we go from the 4 chord to the 1 chord. And that's how we determine our chord progression, starting on G and ending on G, but when it ended on G, it got there through the D. It gave a strong sensation, or a more strong sensation than it would if it came from B minor, that we were in the key of G. And then we wanted the opposite. We were going from the key of D. We could have had a progression that went from B minor to D, and it would not have been as strong a cadence as if we went from the G, So we start and end on the D, but we get to that final D by way of the G. And that gives you a stronger sense of like cadence that you're in the key of D all this time. But those are just how we place the chords that are all the same and do share all like commonality between each other. Then it's basically the cadence that tells you what key you're in. I mean, it's kind of always the cadence. That and the fact that the first chord you hear will kind of place the tonal center in your ear, in your mind. You think, oh, here's our first chord. You hold on to that as you go into the next chord, and you take that previous chord with you in your context. Then what we did is we add a chord that they don't have in common, and once you add the chord they don't have in common, suddenly there's no mistaking it. You're in this key or that key, depending on what chord. There's a lot of chords that they don't have in common, right? So far we just looked at, well, if it's in the key of G, we could add a C chord. And if it's in the key of D, we could add a C sharp half diminished. And you pick one of those two, and that's going to determine what key you're in all the while. Or that's a fancy way to modulate from one key to another also, by switching which one of those you choose. Let's try another example.